This is you. 50 feet underground, your lungs filled with dirt, face covered in blood, and the smell of something dead rotting right next to you. Your only light is a flickering flashlight strapped to your chest. Your only weapon is this pistol that won't do a lot in these cramped tunnels. And your only way out is behind you. Maybe. And oh, would you look at that? Looks like your battery died and now it's pitch black. Now, you're probably wondering how you ended up here. So, let me tell you. It all started in 1965 when the United States sent soldiers over to Vietnam. The Viet Cong built these tunnels for protection from airstrikes. Guerrilla warfare, which relies on hit-and-run tactics, which were short surprise attacks, followed by a quick retreat. This was usually when someone small was going up against someone really big. They had no chance in a stand-up fight, so they had to fight a little differently if they wanted any chance. These tunnels allowed the Viet Cong to move unseen, sneak up on enemy positions, and retreat quickly. They had storage and escape routes with over 120 miles of passageways, with some reaching over 40 miles of length and hundreds of entrances. It was almost impossible to figure out where any of these soldiers were. Not only were these tunnels insanely long and confusing, but they were also extremely deadly. Many tunnels were rigged with booby traps, like punji sticks, which were sharpened bamboo spikes, or explosives. These traps were designed to kill anyone who entered the tunnel that was unwanted. Spring traps were triggered by pressure on the ground or by an intruder's movement. When activated, a spring-loaded device would send sharp objects, like blades or hooks, flying, or would trigger a sharp bamboo spear to strike the target. Deadfall traps were large, heavy objects such as logs or rocks, suspended above the ground by ropes or other mechanisms. When they were triggered, these objects would fall on the victim, crushing them. There were also these scary things called hanging cage traps. They were a cage or net that would fall from above or spring open, trapping the victim inside. Sometimes these traps were covered with sharp objects or other harmful materials. These tunnels were also rigged with traps that released poisonous gases, such as cyanide or other toxic fumes when triggered. And to make it even worse, these tunnels were also very narrow, cramped, and often pitch black. It definitely wouldn't be fun for someone like me with claustrophobia. And also someone like me who's scared of the dark. And also someone like me who's scared of dirt. Viet Cong soldiers were also hiding in these tunnels, ready for you at any time, and your chance of winning wasn't very high. They were often trained to fight in these tunnels, giving you little to no chance. The tunnels were humid, often flooded, and filled with insects and rats. The lack of ventilation made it difficult to breathe, and diseases spread quickly. Poor construction or bombing raids caused tunnel collapses, trapping or killing anyone inside. So, as if it couldn't get any worse, you also had to worry about the tunnel collapsing and killing you at any time, so I guess just keep that in mind. Oh, and the cherry on top were the deadly snakes and spiders. After you deal with all that, the tunnel rules are simple. Go in, don't die, and maybe kill whoever's inside. Tunnel rats were usually men in their late teens or early 20s. The average age of soldiers in the Vietnam War was around 19 to 20 years old. The average age of the soldiers dying were about 22 years old, and about 58,220 US soldiers died in the Vietnam War, while the total number of casualties was about 3 million. Tunnel rats were often people who either volunteered for this dangerous job because they wanted to fight, or because they had specialized training or skills. Not all soldiers volunteered to become these so-called rats. Some were simply assigned to the job. But the men who became tunnel rats were usually, smaller. Like I said, tunnels in Vietnam were narrow, often just 2 to 3 feet in diameter, and only small soldiers could fit through them. This sometimes meant that soldiers under 5'6" or weighing under 150 pounds were the ones sent to the tunnels. Luckily, I'm 6'5" and jacked, but unfortunately for my short kings watching this video, you guys will have to try your best in the tunnels. You were born right in time for the draft, so the government was right at your door the day you turned 18 to congratulate you, and your prize was a one-way ticket to your death in a tunnel 50 feet underground. You started with training before heading out to the tunnels, so at least you had somewhat of a chance. The training was intense, but it didn't fully prepare soldiers for the horrors they would face. You were taught to navigate tight spaces, use basic explosives, and handle weapons for close combat. However, there was no way to simulate the terrifying and claustrophobic nature of the tunnels, so tunnel rats had to rely on their instincts and being able to adapt on the fly in the tunnels. Tunnel rats were often alone in these dark spaces, fighting against basically invisible enemies who were more trained than you and also just as armed as you. Tunnel rats' jobs were clearing out these underground networks. The tunnels were so complex and massive that clearing them could take days or weeks. The rats would enter the tunnels with a flashlight in one hand, a sidearm in the other, and a knife strapped to their body for close combat if necessary. You didn't know who was down there, how many traps there were, or what was going to try and kill you next. There weren't a ton of tunnel rats, with an estimate of about 120 in the original main group, and 36 of them were killed, which is a casualty rate of 33%. So, not something you want to hear when you're also a tunnel rat. Now, we already know this line of work is extremely dangerous, but the life expectancy was probably the lowest I have ever seen. A former tunnel rat said the life expectancy for him and the soldiers going in was about 7 seconds. Yeah, you were expected to survive after going into the tunnel for 7 seconds. Another soldier said that instead of 7 seconds, the life expectancy was actually 2 days or less. And who was right? Well, we may never know, but what I do know is either way, there's no way I'm stepping foot into those tunnels. I mean, the second you get down there, you're immediately outnumbered 100 to 1, it's pitch black, and you don't know which way is up. Your enemies could be in front of you, but they could also be behind you in a trapdoor that you didn't know was there. So yeah, I'll let the short king stay in the tunnels while I keep making these videos. Both those jobs are probably equally as dangerous. By the time you get out of the tunnels, if you somehow manage to survive, your life isn't getting any better. For starters, a bunch of tunnel rats died as soon as they stepped foot out of the tunnels. There were only so many entrances, so the enemy may be waiting for you the second you step out, ready to ambush you and end your tunnel rat career right then and there. You smelled absolutely terrible. Like I said, you could be down there for days and even weeks. It's not like they had an underground shower or a toothbrush for you. No, you had to sit in your own filth, the kind that never fully washes off. The worst part? You know you'll have to go back in. Tomorrow, next week, whenever the people in charge feel like finding another hole to send you into. Finally, you survive the war. You make it out of Vietnam. You fly home, you land on US soil, expecting something. Applause, respect, millions of dollars? No, instead people spit at you in airports. They didn't understand what you went through in the lifetime of trauma you just received. A click of a car door makes your heart stop. You don't know if it's a car or a tripwire explosive going off. You flinch when a hallway goes dark because now you're terrified of the dark. And even years after the war, you still check under your bed, even though you know no one's there. Trying to go back to a normal life after the war and the tunnels was almost impossible. Sleep? Good luck. The tunnels follow you into your dreams. You wake up gasping, screaming, sometimes clawing at the wall because in your head, you're still down there and the walls are closing in. You start sleeping with your knife. You don't trust your own breathing. Every creak, every dark hallway, every quiet moment takes you back to the booby traps of the tunnels. You start talking less, eating less, and that's basically you for the rest of your life. Could you have a family? Sure. Could you spend the rest of your days retired on the golf course? Probably not. But it didn't matter, because all that would ever stay in your mind was those dark tunnels, and never knowing what was in them, all the way up until you died.